Thank you for staying with us and watching Smart 24 TV as we drive your business. My name is Anthony Sabale, and this is The Point. Now, we have, of course, today Mr. Masiko Onesmas, who is a tea farmer, but also a chairperson of Tea Farmers Outgrowers Association in Uganda, and also a very experienced, I'm learning now, coffee farmer as well. So we have a two-in-one person here to share with us what we can do to double the earnings from the current tea growth acreage that we have in Uganda. Mr. Masiko, very interestingly here, when we talk about pricing, marketing of tea, I visited one time one of the tea factories in Ishaka, and I was surprised to find that over 90% of what we produce as tea is actually exported. That is according to them. I don't know if it holds for other tea factories, but that was mind-blowing. I was like, okay, I think we need to give this sector more attention, because as we understand, one of the key elements of NDP3 of the Vision 2040 is our imbalance to kind of bring back the balance of our import and export, right? Yes. And I'm seeing this as a very great opportunity for us to utilize the subsector of tea growing. Let's talk about, first of all, the pricing of our tea. You mentioned that one of the challenges we are having currently at the auction in Mombasa is the relatively lower prices, comparing our prices to Kenya and Rwanda, for example. What are the price determinants? What determines or sets the price for our tea?
Thank you, Anthony. The tea marketing and the pricing, I would like to start it from the lowest level of the value chain. A tea farmer, to him, marketing means selling green leaf to the processing factory. But it's not in isolation. Green leaf prices are determined by made tea prices realized by the processing factories. And tea, like you rightly put it, Uganda tea is largely exported. What you found at, I think, Igara tea factory, which you could have visited, I was a manager there about 4 years ago. The situation, the status of 90% of their tea exported is quite representative to Uganda's average. Uganda exports around 90%, we export around 90% of our tea. And the main outlet is the Mombasa tea auction. Tea is largely sold through auction from East Africa. There have been schools of thought that we should move away from the auction into direct exports. And yes, you can, but the auction has remained a major benchmark for our tea marketing. Selling through auction, Anthony, and viewers, as simple as you know, auction, you are a price taker. You don't set your price. So when you ask me about tea pricing, it is as simple as you take your product to the market, we take our tea to the market, and we watch and see what the market offers to us.
So is it an auction of where the highest bidder takes it?
Exactly.
Okay.
So what you need, what you do as a self-service is you position your product to a certain level of description. You make a tea which will attract a certain price. There are elements of brand name which are also built from market. The $3 I've told you from Rwanda, they've earned it over time, and our $1.3 in Uganda, we have positioned ourselves like that. When you make a great tea from Uganda and you take it to the auction, where your rating has been 1.3, our highest selling marks from Uganda touched $2. The highest in Rwanda, they cross $4 or even $5.
Wow.
So The price offered to our best teas in Uganda is, you can call it unfair, because of how we have generally branded the country.
It sounds unfair.
The poor name we have attached to ourselves restricts. First of all, if you wake up one day and make a very good tea, the market will not give you the equivalent price for it. You need to make a very good tea so many times to be rated to deserve that more. The unfair bit is, if you wake up and make a poor tea, you can't hook and fluke the market like two auctions. The market will respond by crushing your prices and put you where you belong. When you improve, the recognition is very slow.
Because of what actually happened.
Yes, but when you decline, the recognition of the decline is immediate. So that's the problem we have. At the moment, I've talked about $1, but on the ground, we have farmers earning right now, between 400 and 600 shillings per kilogram of green leaf. That's about half of what our neighboring countries' farmers' earnings. We have workers in Uganda paid at around our Ugandan rate, like that is not only to tea, it's a market rate for even other crops. But I worked briefly in Kenya, and we were part of the group for East Africa. Our wage rates compared with Kenya is generally 2.5 times the Kenyan employees and 2.5 times Ugandan employees in the same subsector. And this money comes from the market. You cannot just say, and this is why I offered myself for leadership of outgrowers. Because the misconception that tea factories are cheating us, we farmers. I would like to explain to my fellow farmers where the money comes from. In fact, money comes from the garden. Money is made by a farmer with the raw material, which we call green leaf, and the factory can only spoil it. They cannot improve it. When you bring a poor quality product from the garden, the factory can either maintain it good or mess it up and it becomes poorer. You cannot bring a poor quality raw material and the factory makes it better. Yeah. No way. So it's a collective effort, and that's where we need coordination. We've tried the self-regulation. Maybe that links me, if I may, it links me into the regulatory environment. We are running a private sector-led economy as a country. We have a liberalized tea industry in Uganda. We don't have any specific law to tea. We had tea laws in 1960s. They became redundant in 70s and 80s.
I saw the Uganda Tea Authority Act, 1974. I don't know if it's still...
The 1974, naturally by that, the era was a decree. The 1974, there were no acts. It was the president issuing laws. So that it was an act of 1961, and kept on getting amended. And the last amendment was 1974 as a decree. The 1974 decree specifically, the president wanted to make a legal framework to manage tea plantations which had been grabbed from Asians. So the 1974 version, the main reason for that version was to manage property of departed Asians in the tea industry. But we had the UTGC Act. This was guiding how outgrowers should...
That's Uganda Tea Growers Corporation.
Uganda Tea Growers Corporation Act.
Okay.
It was guiding how smallholder tea farmers should relate with factories. It was repealed in 2006. That decree was also repealed because when we liberalized, those laws were irrelevant, because we are saying do business in a free way, and then you are saying there is this law, which was set up at the time when there was tight control. So we need new laws now, and we have been trying to craft them since 2006. So Ministry of this industry falls under two ministries. We have Ministry of Agriculture and we have Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives to control the higher level of our value chain. So Ministry of Agriculture crafted a policy, and Ministry of Trade also crafted a policy, and they were not in consonance. So about 5 years ago, we approached Operation Wealth Creation, which has been spearheading development of our subsector. So the Chief Coordinator, General Saleh, wrote to the Prime Minister requesting him to coordinate his two ministries. The Prime Minister wrote to the two ministries to develop a comprehensive tea development policy. Ministry of MAIB and MTIC. So as we speak now, I'm privileged to say that 2 days from now, on Monday, we have a regional consultative meeting in Fort Portal. And on Wednesday, we shall have a similar meeting in Imbarara, whereby Ministry of Agriculture was tasked to spearhead the process, but work with Ministry of Trade. So this will be a comprehensive policy which speaks to the time. Yeah, it recognizes that we are in a private sector-led economy, we are in a liberalized environment and would like to remain like that, but we will set policy, how to harmonize the industry. It's ripe time for it, and its absence has hurt the country. The product quality, which I'm telling you about, has largely deteriorated in the hands of lack of regulation. We are not looking for policemen telling us what to do on each and every stage of the value chain, but there needs to be some order, and excesses need to face some enforcement. For example, why should you be found on the road carrying rubbish, a very long branch? The tea, good quality tea, should be 2 leaves and a bud. The shoot should be like this. And now, right now, you find people who have left the tea to overgrow, and it is harvested when it is overgrown, and it is processed, and it goes to the market, and we earn very poor. So we lose money as a country, we lose money as farmers, we lose money, all the stakeholders lose. Yeah. Absolutely. So I think we need to harmonize, and the policy will be quite handy for that.
Let's talk about the yield. I was also mind blown when you said certain farmers, at a certain point you could produce 4.2 tons, and at other times even 5.7 tons per acre. And per hectare. Yeah. And currently we are having the average of 1.8 per hectare. That's very disturbing. And now talking about also issues of quality, and you saying that our acreage cannot be increased because of course, the limitations that are provided for under the conditions which tea can grow. How can we exploit further this acreage that we have to get more? Because there's been an issue of fertilizers as well, fertilizer application. I had once organic agricultural farmers here, they were so against the synthetic fertilizers. They were saying this could actually harm the soils for a very prolonged time. So what can we do to increase the yield from the farmer?
First of all, we acknowledge that there is growing population pressure on land. And we should accept that tea is a plantation crop. You cannot grow 10 plants of tree at the backyard. You cannot do urban farming for tea. So there is some reasonable acreage, and we made a deliberate decision as a country from 1960s to do smallholder tea farming. So this farmer who has only 1 hectare, even 1 acre, it makes economic sense. It's a lengthy discussion also in some quarters. Some people saying leave it for rich men who can grow only grow tens of acres. No, 1 acre makes sense. It makes sense when he can have good yield and when a farmer can earn good prices. Good yield, the single most impactful or most restrictive factor on yield is fertilizer application. We have discussions with our friends in the organic farming movement. I've told you that tea soils have a certain chemistry, and that chemistry is not accommodative for increase into the alkaline space. So organic manuring has a tendency to change the soil chemistry quickly into the alkaline medium. So, I've told you, where you find soil which is very good for a banana plant, there are chances it will not take a tea plant. We've tried out getting tea residues, what remains at a weighing point. Just throwing it back into the garden is risky. There are chances you are going to change the chemistry of the soil and the tea dies. We, in the multinational good setups, we first take it for composting and make sure that it cures to a certain composition before we apply it again. So reliance on inorganic fertilizers at the moment is a must, and the capital requirements to apply fertilizer, NPK fertilizer to be very specific.
And DAP probably?
No.
NPK.
NPK.
Okay.
What do we harvest from a tea plant? It's foliage. What nutrition requirements are needed for raising foliage? It's predominantly nitrogen.
Yeah.
So we apply NPK, formulation of 25% nitrogen. We sometimes vary, especially K. P, I haven't seen variations of P is 5. So sometimes we do 10K or 13K NPK, 25-5-5 or 25-5-10 or 25-5-13, but 25% nitrogen NPK is what has been proven by scientists over time. A bag of NPK, 25-5-5, before the Russia-Ukraine war, was at the market around 120,000 Uganda shillings. I think $28 or so.
That's 50 kilograms?
50 kilograms. When the world went berserk with that war, the bag shot as high as 250,000. More than double. So talk about a farmer, not even a farmer alone, even the large-scale plantations. They could have the capital, but they cannot apply at a loss. They know how to calculate better than us farmers even. So the tea industry in Uganda right now cannot economically, meaningfully apply NPK fertilizers using commercial rates. It is even compounded by the fact that when we go to the market, we earn less because of our quality profile. So we need 2 interventions very urgently. When I talk of doubling our earnings for the country, one is yield. And yield, the key is fertilizer. And fertilizer, the industry is unable to help itself. And this is my appeal to government. Kenya is next door, and they had a policy of 30% fertilizer subsidy 3 years ago. And I always mention it without tiring that when they introduced the fertilizer subsidy to their industry, tea industry, In the year 2020, they increased their national production by 67 million kilograms. I've told you we sold 68 as a country. Yeah. For them, they added 67 by a simple policy of subsidizing fertilizer. Yeah. It is easy for us. The effect will be much bigger than Kenya, not in total, but in terms of percentage. Because for us, we can double. We are coming from so low. Yeah. We can double our production. And I'm not looking for a handout. I want to interest government economists and planners of this country. If you're talking about export promotion, and you have an intervention where you can put money, and in one rainy season, that money brings more than 3 times what you have invested. It's not about being good to farmers. It's about a short-term investment by the country. Just I was calculating the country's fertilizer requirements, and it requires like 12 million United States dollars to import fertilizers for tea. And if you import and you do a 30% subsidy, that would be around $4 million as a subsidy. But increasing our national earnings from tea from $84 million to 120 is like a switch. So if you invest $12 million and in one season you get $24 million in foreign exchange, incremental. It's a short-term investment. And in my opinion, it shouldn't be a matter of where do we get the money. We should find the money. We should find the money. If we understood what impact it had, and I'm not just talking about national. By the time you do that, a farmer will have doubled his yield. This farmer who is getting 1.5 tons from a hectare. If only an average farmer in Uganda would come to my scale of 3.2 tons. Me, I would be in 4.5 because of best practice, because of my skills. So you increase household incomes by an intervention. It is my strong plea that government urgently looks into the matter of tea fertilizer funding. That's one aspect that we can't afford. 2, even if you had money in your pocket, Anthony, you wouldn't put in money which you can't get back. But now, for majority of operators, 2/3 of tea acreage in this country, in the hands of smallholders, even if the fertilizer would make money, you don't have the capital to give it to yourself. So I'm looking at 2 things. Number 1 is a fund to avail that fertilizer. Number 2, avail it at a price that is affordable. And finally, we need to look for sustainability. Why can't we manufacture that fertilizer from here? We have, in the country, we have phosphates. The phosphates are here. So we may need to import, I don't know whether we need to import potassium, but phosphates are there, in Eastern Uganda. So why don't we invest as a country, whether it's government, whether it's a local investor, whether it's a foreign direct investor, but we need to make our NPK fertilizer from here in Uganda.
No, thank you, Mr. Masiko. We have to take another short break, unfortunately. But when we return, yes, we've talked about the fertilizer bit, which is still a little bit contentious, like you said, especially with the organic agriculture side. But the other issue has been the quality, and you brought it out clearly that when we go out to the auction, they do see the quality, what you brought last year, what you're bringing this year, and it takes time for you to actually earn the trust, but it takes a single day to lose it. How can we incorporate quality assurance, quality control measures within especially the factories, but also starting from the farmer, because garbage in, garbage out, it has to start from the farm and then onto the factory. As well, we want to talk about product diversification and value addition to our tea. What are we missing so far in that line as well. And we are talking tea growing, and with Mr. Masiko Onesmas, who is a tea farmer, but also a chairperson of the Tea Farmer Outgrowers Association here in Uganda. We are taking a very short break. Stay with us, don't go anywhere.